My name is Ruth Adebola. For years, that name opened doors in places you will never see with your physical eyes. When people greeted me politely during the day, they had no idea that at night my name was written on registers soaked with oil, blood, and ashes. I wasn't a village witch shouting in the bush. I wore clean clothes. I spoke softly. I blended in. I sat in churches. I attended naming ceremonies. I went to weddings in Ibadan, Abeokuta, and sometimes Lagos. I knew how to smile during worship while listening to instructions from another altar. Most believers think witchcraft is loud. It is not. It is quiet, legal, and patient. We didn't attack randomly. We waited for permissions. We waited for cracks. We waited for moments when people assumed they were safe. And we especially watched Christians who prayed but prayed blindly. There is something most pastors never explain. Not all prayers block arrows. Not all scriptures are equal in the spirit realm. Some verses irritate the kingdom of darkness. Some prayers delay us. But a few psalms, very few, terminate operations completely. Those psalms were a problem for us. They are the reason some assignments failed. They are the reason some people survived things they were never meant to survive. They are the reason certain names were removed from our tracking mirrors. And those are the Psalms I was warned never to reveal, but I will, because I am no longer on that side. Let me explain something before I go into the Psalms. When we talked about arrows, we were not being poetic. An arrow is a spiritual instruction packaged with authority, released through words spoken over you, objects planted near you, dream accepted instead of rejected, legal permissions gained through sin, ignorance, or bloodline covenants. An arrow can manifest as sudden sickness doctors can't explain. Sudden sickness doctors can't explain. Repeated near miss accidents. Confusion that enters prayer. Sudden hatred between loved ones. Sleep that becomes heavy whenever it is time to pray. Financial doors closing one by one without reason. In 2016, during an operation in Oyo State, I watched a man collapse 3 months after an arrow was released. Not because the arrow was strong, but because nothing blocked it. But I have also seen arrows bounce back, scatter, or dissolve mid-flight. Every time that happened, one thing was consistent. Certain sounds were active in that person's life, not quoted once, not read casually, but engaged with understanding and authority. Psalm 1, the psalm that denies access. This was the first psalm we learned to fear, not because it sounds aggressive, but because of what it does legally. Blessed is the man who does not walk in the counsel of the wicked. In witchcraft, counsel is currency. We exchange strategies through counsel. We gain access through counsel. We trap believers through counsel. Any Christian who consistently align themselves with Psalm 1 become legally inaccessible. It was like trying to enter a house whose gate had no hinges. In Ijebu-Ode, there was a woman named Shola Adeyemi. She wasn't loud spiritually. She wasn't prophetic, but she read Psalm 1 every morning before leaving her house, not as noise, as alignment. When we attempted to monitor her movements, our mirrors went blank. Do you know why? Psalm 1 disconnects a person from shared counsel realms. It removes them from group judgment systems. We couldn't vote her into misfortune. Assignments against her stalled, not because we lacked power, but because there was no agreement point. Psalm 2, the psalm that mocks dark altars. This psalm is dangerous. Why do the nations rage and the people plot a vain thing? This psalm doesn't beg, it ridicules. Dark altars operate on intimidation. Fear fuels authority. But Psalm 2 flips the hierarchy. It places God above councils, above thrones, above spiritual governments. In 2018, during a coordinated attack against a pastor in Akure, something went wrong. Every time his name was mentioned in the night meeting, laughter broke out. Not mocking laughter, but confusion. The atmosphere refused seriousness. Later, we discovered he had been praying Psalm 2 nightly, especially verses that speak about God laughing at the plans of the wicked. That psalm turns serious demonic counsels into vain gatherings. Nothing frustrates darkness like being rendered irrelevant. Psalm 35, the psalm that reverses arrows. This one caused us many losses. Psalm 35 is not defensive, it is confrontational. Contend, O Lord, with those who contend with me. When a believer activates Psalm 35 correctly, arrows don't just talk, they return. In Lagos, there was an assignment involving a businesswoman named Kemi Lawal. The plan was slow erosion, health first, then finances. But after she began declaring Psalm 35 during midnight prayers, something shifted. One by one, people connected to the operation began experiencing the exact symptoms meant for her. We knew immediately the arrows had reversed direction. Psalm 35 summons divine litigation. It forces God into the battle as a warrior, not just a protector. Darkness hates courtrooms. Psalm 91, the psalm that collapses ambushes. Everyone knows Psalm 91, but few understand it. It is not a comfort psalm. It is a surveillance psalm. You shall not be afraid of the terror by night. Terror by night is not fear. it is scheduled attack windows. Psalm 91 exposes and cancels ambush points. It neutralizes night operations. In Oshobo, we attempted a dream entry assignment against a man who slept heavily. But every time we tried to enter, we were blocked, as if a perimeter existed around his sleep. He prayed Psalm 91 before bed, every night slowly. The psalm locks the night watch. Psalm 109, the psalm that silences speakers. This psalm is controversial but effective. Let his days be few, and let another take his office. Psalm 109 deals with spiritual spokespersons, entities or humans assigned to speak against you in the spirit. Darkness uses mouths more than hands. When Psalm 109 is activated lawfully, voices lose authority, accusers lose standing. In Abeokuta, an operation collapsed because the person praying Psalm 109 unknowingly shut down the mouth assigned to enforce the attack. After that night, the operation was removed from active records. I am saying this because many believers are under attack, not because darkness is strong, but because they are uninformed. Arrows thrive on ignorance. You don't need to know everything, but you must know what blocks access, what reverses plans, and what silences accusations. These sounds were never meant to be decorative, they are weapons. I know because I stood on the other side when they were fired, and now I have told you what I was never meant to tell. Why some arrows never returned. This is something I did not explain earlier. When arrows are released from the kingdom of darkness, we monitor them. We don't just fire and forget. We track progress through dreams, emotional shifts, sudden conflicts, unexplained exhaustion, changes in prayer habits. An arrow is considered successful when the target stops praying consistently, begin to doubt their spiritual standing, experiences confusion without clarity, accepts strange dreams without questioning them. But there were nights when the tracking failed, not delayed, failed. Those failures are what pushed me to speak now. In Bodija, Ibadan, we were monitoring a young man named Kunle Adebayo. Kunle was not a pastor. He wasn't prophetic. He didn't even fast regularly. But he had one habit that confused us. Every night between 11:30 p.m. and midnight, he read Psalms aloud, not rushing, not shouting. He would pause between verses. That night, Psalm 35 was his focus. At exactly 12:17 a.m., the monitoring mirror cracked. That never happened before. Do you understand what that means? Monitoring mirrors are reinforced through multiple altars. They don't crack unless authority confronts authority. When we checked the logs, the arrow sent toward Kunle had not only reversed, it had lost identification. It no longer knew who sent it. That is rare. Psalm 35 doesn't just reverse arrows. When used consistently, it strips arrows of origin, making retaliation impossible. That night, his name was removed from our active list. Case 2. The dream that backfired in Akure in 2018. Dream entry operations are usually easy. Most believers accept dreams emotionally instead of spiritually. Once they accept them, the arrows land. But there was a woman in Akure named Mrs. Eunice Faloye. We entered her dream with a familiar face, someone she trusted. The message was subtle. Rest, you have prayed enough. She woke up uneasy. Instead of accepting the dream, she opened her Bible and read Psalm 91 aloud before sleeping again. That was a mistake for us. Psalm 91 doesn't just protect the body, it rewrites dream jurisdiction. When we tried to re enter, the dream environment had changed. It was no longer passive, it was guarded. The operation was aborted, and one of the junior operatives assigned to that dream was spiritually injured. This is why Psalm 91 is feared in night councils. It doesn't block dreams, it controls who enters them. There was a meeting that turned silent in Abeokuta 2019. This was a scheduled meeting, one of many, held spiritually over Abeokuta South. The target was a businessman named Segun Oladipo. The goal was gradual collapse. First, contracts, then partnerships, then reputation. But something strange happened. Every time his name was mentioned, silence followed. No reinforcement, no agreement, no response. Later, we discovered Shegun had been praying Psalm 109 daily, not angrily, but deliberately. Psalm 109 targets speaking authority. In that meeting, every voice assigned to enforce Shegun's downfall lost permission to speak. Operations depend on words. Without voices, there is no execution. The meeting ended early. Here is the truth most believers don't know. Darkness does not fear loud prayer. Darkness fears legally accurate prayer. These psalms remove permission, disrupt monitoring, silence enforcers, and reverse instructions. That is why we hated them. That is why we hated them. Not because they are dramatic, but because they are precise. People think I left because I got tired. No, I left because I saw too many failures. I watched people survive accidents they were scheduled to die in. I watched sickness disappear without ritual countermeasures. I watched names vanish from registers overnight. And every time we investigated, the answer was the same. Psalms were active. Not once, not casually, but daily, intentionally, and with understanding. I began to realize something terrifying. The kingdom of darkness is not winning because it is powerful. It is winning because many believers don't know what to use. Before I left, there were certain names and households we were instructed to avoid completely. Not because they were perfect, but because their spiritual boundaries were too expensive to cross. Those households prayed psalms consistently, rejected strange dreams, spoke scripture aloud, and understood spiritual authority. Their arrows never landed. There is something I have avoided saying until now, because this part exposes not witches but believers. I watch many Christians read Psalms faithfully and still suffer. I watch many Christians read Psalms faithfully and still suffer. And from the other side, we knew exactly why nothing was happening. The psalm was correct, the words were powerful, but the conditions were wrong. The first truth is this: Psalms respond to position, not emotion. One of the biggest mistakes believers make is reading Psalms from desperation instead of authority. In the kingdom of darkness, authority is everything. Emotion does not move the spirit realm, position does. When someone reads Psalms while still enjoying hidden sin, entertaining bitterness, holding on to secret covenants, or living double lives, the psalm became noise, not a weapon. I remember a case in Lagos Island where a woman read Psalm 35 daily, but still kept charms given to her by her grandmother just in case. Her psalm never worked. Why? You cannot fire arrows from two kingdoms at once. The spirit realm recognizes alignment, not sincerity. The second truth: timing determines power. This will shock many people. Not every time is equal in the spirit. We planned attacks around windows, late nights when prayer guards dropped, early mornings before spiritual awareness returned, specific calendar days tied to family covenants. That is why Psalms prayed casually during the day often had little effect. But the same psalm prayed between 11:45 p.m. and 3 o'clock a.m. could shut down entire operations. Darkness moves by schedules. When a believer unknowingly prayed at the exact hour an arrow was released, the collision caused collapse. That is why some people say, I don't know what happened, but everything just stopped. It wasn't luck, it was timing. The third truth: silence after prayer is not failure. This one deceived many believers. After a psalm is prayed correctly, there is often silence, no dream, no sign, no emotional reassurance. Many believers interpret that silence as nothing happened. But in witchcraft, silence often means systems are shutting down. When an altar goes quiet, it is usually because permissions are being reviewed, operations are under investigation, or authority has been challenged. Silence is not absence. Sometimes silence means panic on the other side. The fourth truth: sounds must be spoken, not just read. In witchcraft, sound carries authority. Written words inform, spoken words command. Many believers read Psalms silently, hoping God will understand. But the spirit realm responds to utterance. Even a whisper spoken with authority travels farther than silent reading. That is why we fear believers who spoke Psalms slowly, clearly, and consistently. They weren't shouting, they were issuing instructions. The fifth truth: consistency frustrates darkness more than power. This is the final truth. Darkness can survive a powerful prayer once. It cannot survive consistent authority. Many attacks succeeded not because believers lacked power, but because they stopped too early. They prayed Psalm 91 for 3 nights, then stopped when things felt better. That is when we resumed. But believers who made Psalms part of their daily structure became impossible to manage, not untouchable, just too expensive to attack. I was not defeated by a pastor. I was not defeated by a prophet. I was not defeated by a deliverance session. I was defeated by ordinary believers who understood authority. People who knew when to speak, knew what to speak, and knew how long to continue. That knowledge is why I am no longer on that side. That knowledge dismantled everything I was taught. The Psalms we were given were never meant to be poetic comfort. They are legal instruments. They block arrows not because they are emotional, but because they are accurate. If arrows are still landing, don't assume darkness is winning. Ask instead, am I aligned? Am I consistent? Am I speaking with authority? Am I praying at the right time? That is where battles are truly decided.